Welcome to another video. In today's video, we're going to talk about specs. Are specs important? What do we need specs for? What are specs anyway? To the video, let's go. For starters, what are specs? Now, there's really not a strict definition anywhere for specs, but to the best of my knowledge, specs actually stand for, they're actually short for the term specifications. Now, specifications refer to the specific information concerning a certain device. That's what specs are. So obviously, if we're talking about smartphones in this instance, smartphones have the four main parts of a phone. You usually have processor, SoC, display, cameras, battery. So the information about these four main parts of a smartphone are its specifications, or specs for short. And why should you care? Because I've seen lots of people argue vehemently that specs do not matter. They're just something that are written on paper and they have no bearing on real life performance. I kind of like disagree with that a lot of the time. Now, specs are important. They're actually like really important. Now, specs actually tells you what you are buying. That's why it's important. So when you buy something, obviously you're going to want to know what it is. So even without seeing it, if you see the specs, you get a general idea of what it is and possibly what it can do. Specs are used by a lot of people for a lot of stuff, but chief amongst them includes being able to appraise, to assess, to give a very good look at the stuff, the electronic, the phone, the whatever that they want to buy before even stepping out of their house and making that financial commitment. So obviously, before you even want to consider if you're going to buy something or not, you're going to want to know what it entails to be able to buy that stuff and use it. That's very important. Two, comparisons, because there are lots of options on the market. So if I know that for example, this hand has 5 fingers and this hand has 4 fingers, obviously I'm going to want to pick a hand with 5 fingers, for example. That's how specs are. Specs are everywhere. Now obviously, if I like batteries, for example, I am going to want to look at a phone with a very high mAh count, for example. I think in 2018, when I was looking for a new phone, I always talk about this channel was formed because I went to buy a phone and I tumbled into the rabbit hole of specs, and I still keep digging deeper because there are so many ways, there are so many tunnels in the wonderland that is smartphone specs. So I was looking at a Nokia, I think it was a Nokia X5 then, but the battery put me off. 3,000, absolutely not for me. But I saw another one and I saw 4,000. I'm like, yes, that's it. So specs helped me know the battery of the phone I wanted to buy, because I already knew like the specific battery spec that I wanted, and the spec on the phone allowed me to be able to choose. If you like cameras, for example, there are specific camera specs, sensor size, pixel count that you can look at to be able to at least have a faint idea, not a full idea, faint idea of how it is going to perform. Processors are the same thing. You're going to want to look at the name of the processor itself, and that will help you know how well the phone is going to perform. Displays, the resolution of the display, full HD, high definition, 2K, some as high as 4K even. So you look at the specs and then you know that this is what I want to buy. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who do not know. I don't know if it's I don't know the words to use now, because I always like picking my words carefully. But as an aside, there are lots of people who would argue vehemently, loudly at the top of their voice. I usually find that these people have the loudest voices in conversations about phones, that specs do not matter, that specs are paper jargon that are just written there, and therefore you shouldn't care about specs. You should forget about specs. Who gives a damn about specs? Specs are rubbish. Specs are this and specs are that. If you want to appraise the phone, go into a store, pick up a phone, handle it. If you want to compare, pick up another one and handle it as well, and yada 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 yada, the whole slew of stuff that they say. But these people will not tell you that if you, as it is nowadays with online shopping, if you want to buy a phone from Banggood or Easy Buy or Amazon or AliExpress, Jumia, if you want to buy phones from these places, there is no way of, I don't know, does AliExpress have a physical store in Nigeria, for example, that you can go in and test the phone before you buy it? No, you're going to have to buy this stuff with the knowledge that, with the faith that the specs written there are actually, what you're going to expect from the phone. So telling people that they should ignore specs, they should not learn about specs, that they should go into a store, pick up a phone and test it, in this day and age, it doesn't make a lot of sense at all. Secondly, I think these people also, a lot of them, I'm sorry to say, are ignorant about how specs work. I think lots of these people are either they have a vested interest in trying to sway public opinion towards a certain argument, or they're just hiding behind their ignorance. Because there is no way you see somebody will tell you that, for example, I want to buy phone A, and they'll be like, what if you did this, that, you shouldn't really care about specs. Go, how do you test? Fine, how do you test a battery? Would the store give you a battery and say, take it home and use this phone for a day and see how long the battery will last and bring it back? I don't know if these people don't think specs are very, very important. They are a good yardstick for judging how a phone is going to perform battery wise, processor wise, camera wise, and how sharp and clear the display is going to look like. The next item I want to look at is something that these people will always tell us, that specs are not important. Well, actually, companies think specs are. So if the companies that makes these phones, that put these specs together, think that these specs are important, why would you as a layperson think that specs are not important? Why? Because if specs are not important, why do you think companies brand them? They put them front and center everywhere you go. You see our new phone 48 megapixels, our new phone 108 megapixels, our new phone can last you for 10 years with a 3 million ampere battery, our new phone gives you smooth viewing experience with a FHD display, AMOLED, our new phone gives you this, gives you that, our processor is faster than a cheetah. If these specs aren't important, companies wouldn't put them in your face all of the time, trying to make sure that you see them so as to be able to convince you to get them. You understand? And another part of this that you want to look at is that if these specs also aren't important, companies wouldn't hide them. Yes, companies hide specs. If you do not believe me, go on Google right now. Go on Google and Google who made the camera sensor of the Infinix Hot 10. You can go and check it. It's unknown. You would check any site you want to check, from Kimoville to GSM Arena. Just keep checking. It's unknown, right? These are generic sensors. You don't know who made them. They're just generic. They're just there. If specs weren't important, companies wouldn't hide the name of their processors. You can go and check certain phones. Go and look at the Samsung A02, for example. Most sites won't tell you, or rather they didn't carry the name of the processor that it uses. We had to find out some other way. It uses a MediaTek MT6739 from 2017. But you check their website, you're not going to see there. Companies hide specs. So if specs aren't important, companies wouldn't hide them. So it is very important that you learn about smartphone specs. I know lots of people only care about specs when they want to buy a new phone, and after they finish buying their phone, whoosh, they're gone. It shouldn't be like that. Your phone has a lifespan of 2 years, 3 years, and then you'll be in the market for a new phone. So if you have a phone currently, you're seeing my face and you're listening to the sound of my voice, it is time for you to start prepping for your next phone so you know what to get. phones are getting more and more expensive, and that's the bad side too. But luckily for us, on the good side, they are also getting more and more competitive, and there are many value for money brands these days. So you should be able to look at the specs and know which one is good for you to avoid overpaying for overpriced gadgets. That's it, and that will be it for this video. Just take this away: specs are important. They're very, very important. I know some companies tend to abuse specs or mislead people, but specs are important, and it will do you a lot of good to learn about them and how they're rated. Thank you, and bye bye.